Welcome to RPG Archive. We got a great show today, and of course we couldn't do the archive without the unofficial co-host, Teddy, aka Majority. How's it going?
Hey Spencer, I'm doing swell. It's been a minute, but you know I love me a good RPG, especially when it comes to Dragon Quest. Woo! We're back, baby.
Man, what an exciting game, because this is one of, ironically, we'll get into the sales, but it's one of the higher selling Dragon Quest, but also one that most people haven't played, which is strange. It's a strange juxtaposition. Probably because it's only been released once. So it's a weird one, but we're gonna dig deep into Dragon Quest, talk about the making of it, the release, and everything that goes along with that. But before we do, the last one we did was Dragon Quest in the series was Dragon Quest V. Boy, we're taking quite a jump as far as the years go.
I take 80% responsibility for this. Actually, this was the next one to come out after Dragon Quest V on the DS. This came out before Dragon Quest VI. So that's how I defend this, doing this first in my mind. Plus, anything to push back 6. I'm having a hard time with that.
Gotcha. No, that's fair. I was super excited to do this. My girlfriend actually got me this for my birthday, an actual DS copy of it. So I was jonesing to start, and I was glad you were into it too. So we could just kick it off. A lot to talk about. Are you ready to just jump right in?
I am. Before we do, I will say that I actually bought the Japanese copy years ago because it was like $10 and I was like, oh yeah, I'll play Dragon Quest. And I also had bought this guide, and some dude left his phone number, so I have to hold my hand over it on the top in Sharpie. I was like, oh yeah, I'll play the Japanese version and I'll use the guide to play through it. Never did that. But I got this like multi-pack R4 like pre-programmed card, and Dragon Quest 9 was on it, and you had mentioned you got it and you reviewed it for the button mappers, and I was like, yeah, I'll join you. You know, I needed something easy to get back in the Dragon Quest groove. And this is another one I'm ready to throw in the archive.
Awesome. Make sure that you check out Teddy's channel, Majority. He does like a long range of everything. He also does a Q&A that I'm going to steal. And so there you have it. And then we are also on the button mappers, as he alluded to. So it's podcast. Check it out. All right. I think we're ready to get started. Let's
do it.
with the making of Dragon Quest IX. It was co-developed by Square Enix and Level 5. I want to talk more about Level 5 when we do 8, because that will be more, I think, more pressing. The company which had developed Dragon Quest VIII in the 2004 on the PS2. As with earlier Dragon Quest titles, production was overseen by Armor Project, a studio founded by series creator Yuji Horii to supervise the series since the original game. Okay, and looks like Horii acted as game designer and wrote the storyline. I'm sure he broke his hand doing that. The event planner was Masahiro. Help me out with that one.
Kataoka. Yep.
While the scenario script was written by a team led by Atsushi Narita. Akihiro Hino from Level 5 acted as co-director. The director from Square Enix was Jin Fujisawa, with the game becoming his directorial debut after working as part of the series scenario staff under Horii since the late 1990s. And the producer was Ryutaro Ichimura. Yeah. I feel like Tim Heidecker trying to get through this. Lot to unpack there. You know, what's your, I guess we won't get into the facts about Level 5, but what is your history with Level 5?
Mostly stuff on the 3DS. I played Yokai Watch. I played a bits of 8 as well, Dragon Quest 8. I played it on PS2. I played it on the 3DS, mostly on the 3DS. I think I just kind of know they're kind of like artsy style, this kind of like kawaii, cutesy style, um, and kind of like this more like animated cartoonish style. I know a couple like indie style games that they published or developed, like Attack of the Tokyo Monster, and there's another one, Crimson Shroud, is like a tabletop RPG. They kind of like are a variety studio. I've always found like I found them like to have a high reputation, and then I end up getting underwhelmed by a lot of their projects. Like Yokai Watch is like kind of a blockbuster, but it's really not that great of a game. Um, Dragon Quest 8, I think, is like the thing that most people probably, say like, oh yeah, level 5 did that. And so to see the sequential nature, they went from working on 8 to then working on 9. It shows that Hori and the Dragon Quest team put some faith in them, and they liked what they did with 9. And clearly it worked to some extent, with the financial success of the ninth game. And I know that 8 is a lot of people's favorites. And I think I could see kind of like the 3D look to this game. At that time, Dragon Quest 7 did not have a 3D look, so like a lot of this did carry over from 8. It was programmed for like an inferior unit in the Nintendo DS. So, I mean, you can only do what you can visually. But overall, I mean, I'm happy that I think level 5 did some good work here. Some of their more consistent work.
Dude, I couldn't agree with you more on your comment earlier. It when Dragon Quest 8 came out, it's definitely my favorite of the Dragon Quest. And man, at the time it got me into Dragon Quest and I was blown away by it. I just couldn't believe there's a whole story that I'll go into once we do that game. But I was mind blown by how much I loved that. And I found out it was level 5. And then they made a game right after called Rogue Galaxy. And it had like a cell shaded look, kind of like Dragon Quest 8 did. And I was like, this level 5 company is gonna be my company. Like they're gonna be the people that make the games that I like. Because they clearly nailed it with this one. And then Rogue Galaxy came out and it was good. It was a little different, and I never played Dark Cloud. I still haven't. I'd love to. I'd love to have an excuse to play that game. But Rogue Galaxy was good. It just wasn't at the same level. And then I found everything after it that level 5 made, just like you said, to be a little underwhelming. I just wasn't. I thought this company would really capture me, and it just didn't. Like, yeah, like you said, Yokai Watch. It's like, oh, this is gonna be the next Pokemon. Let me strap my reins to this, and then it's like maybe, but it's kind of boring. Like it's not great. And then they made a game on the 3DS called Fantasy Life. That full disclosure, Leo, the funny nerd, adores this game, and I despise it. So I think it's just horrible. But it has its fans. But it definitely wasn't what I was looking for. So yeah, level 5. I'm a little disappointed because they have the ability to make amazing games, but they choose to really be all over the place, I think. So
It's just like, how did they make Dragon Quest 8 though? I guess the thing is, you have Hori-san as kind of like supervisor and lead in this project. And he probably took a lot of like directorial influence, or had a lot of directorial influence over them. And then when you kind of leave them to their own devices, you end up getting like, you know, Fantasy Life or Yokai Watch. And it's like, I mean, I don't know. Pick and choose, what you want. Do you want like somebody telling you what to do? Do you make something great out of it, or do you want to be left to your own and just make a bunch of shit? Like I don't know. There are some good like little mini indie projects on 3DS that I would recommend from level 5. But I don't know. It's what it is.
yeah, I agree. Concept work for a new mainline Dragon Quest game began after development wrapped up on Dragon Quest VIII, with Hori and the rest of the series staff deciding what platform the next mainline entry should be developed for. Hori wanting to reach as wide an audience as possible. Hino later noted that he suggested the DS as a platform from an earlier stage, inspired by its widespread commercial success. Level 5 was already working with the DS developing Professor Layton and the Curious Village. Man, I don't see how you make that connection. After some hesitation about having a mainline entry on a portable platform, Hori was convinced. Production began in 2005 with Hori keeping its production as secret as possible. During production, it went by the codename Zenlon, named by Ichimura during a conversation in a store called Zenlon Tokyo. Okay. So, what are your thoughts on it being on the DS versus, well, let's see, 2005? They probably could have started working it on the Wii slash maybe the PS3. I guess would have been the other, or maybe a very late GameCube PS2 game. I don't know. What are your thoughts on the different options of a console they could have released this for?
Okay, clearly the game suffers in a visual aspect. You can see it almost looks worse than N64 3D graphics. I think it does. Like I could probably safely say that.
Yeah.
This is not the first Dragon Quest game that came out on DS. Dragon Quest 4 came out on DS in Japan in 2007. And then 5, and I guess these are like ports,
Remakes.
makes in a sense because there are some different elements. But they're not that different. I guess from NES graphics, yeah. So they are remade. The game uses the DS functionality at that time in ways that are conceived as ingenious.
Mhm.
That hadn't been meddled with before and influence the future of like DS and 3DS hardware. So I think that it made sense at the time. Playing it in hindsight in 2022, when all DS functionality is basically null unless you do local Wi-Fi or local connectivity, does it make sense? Probably not. Would it have made more sense to put it on a PSP? If you were going for a single player experience, then yes, probably. What do you think?
I well, there's an irony to it, but I will say this. I think Dragon Quest does its best work on the big screen. It just is such a bombastic, grand experience that I would have honestly have preferred that they made it for the PS3. I don't know that that was even possible at the time at 2005, or maybe they should have just waited a little bit. Or even the Wii. The Wii had a huge audience too. I think it could have done more work there. We saw Xenoblade Chronicles there, and you could have made the graphics. Obviously, that goes without saying that the graphics would have been nicer. Um, y- you know, we'll get to some of the DS stuff about what makes that so great. But to me, conceptually, that I don't see Dragon Quest as a multiplayer game. Now, there's a big caveat on that because there's a game that's called Dragon Quest X that exists that is literally a multiplayer game. We can't play it not multiplayer, at least not yet. Soon you will be. But the and I say that ironically about wanting it to be on the big screen because I've played most of them on the small screen. Like I've played
Yes. Yeah.
like the originals on the Switch. You got the DS versions. Um, 8 originally I played on the big screen, and then I played it fully on the 3DS. And then the Switch game, obviously it's a Switch, you can play small or big. But I don't know. I think the DS just was too little personally for me to try to handle a Dragon Quest game. But I see what they were doing with the multiplayer that probably couldn't have been done on any other console at the time. So
I don't know. I think the DS was just an RPG powerhouse. I think people liked that you could just take it wherever and you could just boot it up whenever. And I don't know. I mean, this is more of a thing for Japan at the time.
yeah,
So, I mean, they're following the Japanese market. What was the alternative? Make it on the Wii? PS3?
I would have been into the Wii. I know PS3 might be a stretch. I don't even know if that would be possible at the time, but I would have taken the Wii.
It's quite a confession from a non Wii fan.
Yeah. I mean, I probably wouldn't have played it anyway. until later, until like on the Wii U. But either way, I would have tried that. Horley later described the platform as a great choice for Dragon Quest due to its portability and multiplayer options. He called the Wi-Fi functionality of the console the final deciding factor. He briefly considered it making it a Gaiden with the next mainline entry coming later, but ultimately chose to commit to making a mainline entry for the DS. While Hori anticipated a quick development due to working on a portable console, he later admitted it was taking far longer than he anticipated. A challenge for the team was working within the DS hardware. As with each previous Dragon Quest, they had worked with increasing hardware specs from console to console. We've talked about this a little bit. Do you think the DS was up to the task? I know you call it an RPG powerhouse, but do you think maybe they pushed it too hard?
Well, you played Dragon Quest Monsters Joker.
Yeah.
I feel like that game thrives a little better than this one as a single player experience. And that's a Gaiden. In this sense, they define Gaiden as a spin-off.
Okay.
Gaiden literally means foreigner, but like, in video game context, I understand. Is it up to the task of making an RPG? It's almost like a demake. And
Okay, you have a game that hasn't
bad ways.
Yeah.
Of a game that hasn't happened, right? But yeah, it's like it's Dragon Quest 8 reduced
Yeah.
sequel. Like
I
reduced
100% agree.
visuals, reduced storyline, new hardware capabilities, but I don't know. There's some appeal to that because they started program for this thing at the time that the DS had come out. Professor Layton, I guess maybe that was like a launch or early DS title. There's something interesting there about and maybe it was they bit off more than they could chew. It took 4 years for it to come out, 3-4 years. But numbers speak for its success.
Yeah, certainly the DS had the player base. They were just, I could see the marketing reason for doing it. There's just so many people with the DS. It was one of the hottest selling consoles maybe ever. I don't have the numbers in front of me. I just know that it was freaking huge.
Yeah, this is common knowledge. We just know this. Yeah.
So it makes sense. I think in the greedy piece part of me is like I was hoping for a bigger game, like more of a fulfilling Dragon Quest experience as opposed to what we got, and we'll explain some of that later.
There is a question about, is this more of a spin-off than it is a mainline game? But we can get to that.
Okay.
Sure.
Which is a good question because it's certainly, yeah,
a question that is fitting.
Yeah.
Want me to do the next one?
Yeah, go for it.
Cool. In an interview with Game Informer from 2010, producer Ryutaro Ichimura has a sit down and explains that Dragon Quest IX took inspiration from some modern games, Oblivion, The Elder Scrolls, and Diablo. In an interview with Game Informer, Dragon Quest IX producer Ryutaro Ichimura revealed that he doesn't consider the game a JRPG at all, and it has some rather surprising influences. We have no recognition that Dragon Quest IX is a part of the so-called JRPG genre, unless you mean all the RPGs created in Japan are JRPGs. That's a statement worth unpacking alone. The differences from past, more traditional Dragon Quest games include a focus on multiplayer, a quest system, the ability to view armor and weapons on your characters after equipping them. The way these elements come together reminded me of an MMO, so I asked Ichimura if he has looked at MMOs while designing Dragon Quest IX. That wasn't the genre Square had in mind either, though. He explained, the quest system was inspired by the Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion, which I played many times. And I would like to reference Diablo as the title, which inspired our thinking about how we can maintain players' motivations. So I think the first question I think of is, do you see influences, clear, visible influences of Oblivion or Diablo in Dragon Quest IX?
Definitely Diablo, and I think it's in the worst possible ways. Um, as a guy who has been forced to do a bunch of grottos, it literally made me stop playing this game. That is complete. I think that's utter nonsense. The Elder Scrolls 4, I haven't played Elder Scrolls 4. Played Skyrim and I played Morrowind more. But I'm assuming there's a link there. Yeah, maybe. Seems a little lazy if you're gonna say that he took inspiration from the quest system, because the quest system is very lazy. It's it's the little fetch quests, and yes, theoretically they flesh out the world, which is what all the I was on RPG Reddit, so I apologize. There's some terminologies come out that I kind of earn my ire, but yes, mini quests can flesh out the world. You can find out that a village really likes fish, if that helps you understand the lore of the world. But no, I don't. I if that's the inspiration, I think they had a very half-assed job of trying to make Elder Scrolls and Dragon Quest. What about you?
I have played Oblivion.
Okay.
I'm not that big into the Diablos. I got like a world into Diablo too, and I'm not a PC gamer, so the only connection I think I could make with the quest system is that the quest system is annoying and has tangible benefits. So, oftentimes, we'll get into the class systems later, but in order to further advance your classes, you need to complete some ridiculous fetch quests. Like, I wanted to get a couple of them. I didn't want to get all of them because they were all so annoying. There's one where it's like defeat metal slimes with your wand with a mage, but without using magic. You have to like physically attack them with like and it's like, what? Your Your wand can do 1 damage on a metal slime if it hits. And it's like I have to spend time doing this in order to get this thing. Or even if you just the sage, right? The sage is like a class that basically most players will need, and you get it towards the end of the game. And it's like take down 5 great trolls with frizz, one of the weakest spells.
Yeah.
It's like why am I doing like why is this the condition? There's no logic here. It's just like it is just a fetch quest. And I mean it's been years since I played Oblivion, so I feel like the quests in Oblivion are probably more substantive. I agree that I think it's not fleshed out in a way that is like meaningful as far as narrative, but as far as your character advancement goes, it's incredibly beneficial and almost mandatory.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm conflicted on that. As far as the multiplayer goes, I mean, it's like Diablo. I guess I could see how like players could jump into your world and you could play, whoever's campaign together. So that makes sense. And then as far as like seeing your character's armor and stuff, yeah, but I mean that's a joke in and of itself, you know.
I like. I'm a little bit. This guy, I don't know his history. This producer, revealed he doesn't consider the game a JRPG at all. We have
That's a question.
we have no recognition that Dragon Quest IX is part of the so-called JRPG genre. He says we. I think that might be a mistranslation, because I'm curious if I asked Hori about this, if he would have the same response. Usually when we were doing these before, especially Dragon Quest, we're usually talking about a game that came out in like the early to mid 90s, or even earlier than that. So RPGs hadn't really taken the foothold, post Final Fantasy VII. We have this is one of the later RPGs we've ever done. Maybe even the latest. I can't remember all of them. Etrian Odyssey is probably somewhere. But at this point, JRPGs have been pretty solidified. Now, yes, focus on multiplayer is a little bit weird for a JRPG, but it's not the first game to do that. A quest system, not the first game to do that. Not the first JRPG to do that. The ability to view armor and weapons on your characters after equipping them is technically a more Western style, but that almost undermines the whole point of JRPGs from the beginning. Because if you were to say that because they do more Western oriented things in it, Dragon Quest is literally based on a Western RPG. So I guess really what he's saying is he doesn't understand the JRPG term. And maybe JRPG isn't a term that makes sense. And I can agree with that idea. But I certainly, if people looked at this game and you asked, is this a JRPG or a Western RPG? I think everyone would very clearly say JRPG.
Yeah. Yeah. It's unfortunate that the term has become conflated with turn-based RPG, because I don't think he would say it's not a turn-based RPG. I think that's like a brain-dead statement. If you like that, first off, that would just be unfactual.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is probably a criticism of the concept of JRPG.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's also Akira Toriyama's artwork. Just throwing that out.
So if it's his artwork and he's from Japan, that makes it Japanese. I don't know.
It certainly skews it that way. I mean,
I guess. Yeah, well, technically, the term anime, this is a debate too, like what makes something anime. But apparently, if it's like a Japanese style animation, then it is considered anime.
Yeah.
So I guess this is like a similar debate or argument.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't care to get into the semantics of it,
yeah.
but this is what the discourse is.
All right, you ready to talk about the release? It's fun. Well,
release.
I will say that it is funny in that they mentioned that Elements Came Together reminded me of an MMO, because obviously the next game they made was an MMO. So interesting.
Level 5?
No, but the next Dragon Quest would be
an
MMO.
Dragon Quest 10. Yeah, I see. Gotcha.
So
prophetic.
I'm curious, real quick before we talk about the release, do you think that Dragon Quest 9, the success of it, led to them wanting to go full-fledged MMO?
Has to be. Dragon Quest 10 came out on the Wii. There's your Wii game. Just never got ported. So that's a different resentment. But yeah, no, that makes sense. Obviously, they want to replicate success. But Dragon Quest was always successful in Japan. Well, mostly. 3 was weird. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. It's Dragon Quest 10. Have you tried to play that game on PC or something? Or Switch?
Switch. I downloaded the thing, demo or something, and it's too much Japanese text. I got lost, so I didn't care.
I'm gonna throw something out there. I think that game plays like ass. Its controls are really bad. That's literally all I can say, because I've dabbled in it. I have a translation patch for the PC, and it mostly works. There's some text that didn't get fixed, but the game is very annoying to play. The controls are not good. They probably don't care to fix it at this point, because it's like, what are they going to do? But anyway, we probably will never get to talk about Dragon Quest X. So any chance I can just slip it in there would be great. Please release the single player version, Square Enix. in America. Like,
We
why
gotta
not?
get 3 HD 2D first. That's like kind of just fallen by their wayside of announcements.
Yeah.
So I'll take what I can get.
All right, let's talk about. Oh, go ahead.
Actually, just real quick
Yeah.
before we keep going, this is tangential, but I think when we talked about Dragon Quest 3, it was like, would you be excited to get the HD 2D remake? And I was like, nah, I'm not itching to play it. I reconsidered that. I think I'm gonna buy it when it comes out. So
Me too.
I don't know. I think I just, even if I don't play it right away, like I support the idea of getting more Dragon Quest mainline traditional style games. So I think that's just a project I want us to support. So Square Enix, I'm putting it out there. I'll buy it.
We buy Dragon Quest. We do Dragon Quest here.
We do. This is our thing.
All right, let's talk about the release for Dragon Quest IX: Sentinels of the Starry Skies. They didn't actually have these subtitles for the games, right? Like that was maybe started.
No. 5 is Hand of the Heavenly Bride.
Right, but
4 is Chapters of the Chosen.
But when they first came out, they didn't have those, did they? Like it was just
7 and 8 did not.
8 had Journey of the Cursed King.
Oh, so yeah. So
but like originally, like 4, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. God, I don't even know about 6, but 5. I don't think they had subtitles yet.
they were just called Dragon Warrior. Dragon Warrior.
Yeah,
And even the PS1 version of 7 was called Dragon Warrior 7.
yeah, that was it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe 8 was the first titled one.
And they're like, let's give all of them titles. Yeah, because 3 is now called like what, Seeds of Salvation or something.
Yeah. 2 is Light of the Luminary or something. I don't fucking know.
Yeah, it's so weird that they chose to just start giving them all names. What would they name the first one? The first.
The first game, Erdrick's Beginnings or something.
Yeah. Dragon Quest Beginnings.
1.
All right,
The
so
one to start it all.
this game came out in Japan in 2009, in North America in 2010, in Europe in 2010. Sorry, in Japan on July 11th, in North America literally a year later, July 11th, 2010, and then in Europe, July 23rd, 2010. Hey Terry, you can play it. August, in Australia, in August 19th of 2010.
The DS is region free anyway, so you still can play it.
There you go.
But yeah,
But it won't have.
you can support it.
But if you get it in Australia and you're playing a North America copy, you would not get the accent.
True. I can't think of one contextual situation where it matters.
Let's see. We have an article here. Big in Japan, Dragon Quest IX dominates the charts. It does. Big in Japan doesn't. This is by Brendan Sinclair on GameSpot.
Yeah.
Big in Japan doesn't even begin to describe Square Enix's Dragon Quest series. Yada yada yada. Dragon Quest IX sold through a staggering 2.3 million copies in its debut week. Wow. Put that figure in perspective. In 1 week on sale in Japan, Dragon Quest IX sold more copies on a single platform than Madden NFL 09 sold in its debut month in the United States on the Xbox 360, PS3, PS2, Wii, DS, and original Xbox combined, according to NPD figures. Even more remarkably, Japan's population is around 1/3 that of the US.
Take that, John Madden.
It's the first installment in the series to debut on the DS, and it crushed all competition for the week, outselling Nintendo's second place Wii Sports Resort by a 22-1 ratio. I certainly hope so. Few publishers bothered to release games against the juggernaut, with the second best new release of the week some RPG with a very, very long name, ranking 46 on Media Crate's top 50. One other new release, the Japanese PlayStation 3 edition of WWE Legends of WrestleMania. I'm assuming that's a typo. Manages to
Yeah, WrestleMania.
just inside the top 50 at 49. Maybe an error.
If you go on the second page, there's some figures to put it in comparison. So software-wise for that week, this is the week of July 6th to 12th, 2009 in Japan. Dragon Quest IX sold the 2.3 million copies. The second runner-up was Wii Sports Resort at 103,000.
It's a bloodbath.
This even puts like Pokemon, which is on that chart, which is selling like 8,000 with Pokemon Platinum. It's a shame. The hardware comparisons, the DSi, I don't think this maybe is for the week. Or yeah, this has to be for the week. DSi had released in 2008, I think, the year before. And so I think in that week it sold 118,000 copies versus the PSP at 26,000. Or that's lifetime. I'm not sure. That doesn't make sense to me though. So what it sounds like to me is that Dragon Quest IX was a system seller.
Yeah, and you could almost add 10 grand to it if you want to add the DS Lite to it. That is, yeah, they outsold everything. Wow.
It's very interesting to hear Dragon Quest IX called a juggernaut.
It is, because man, today that's the one that nobody's played. At least in America.
Yeah.
But I guess in Japan it was a huge freaking deal.
If you keep going, we can look at the comparisons of US to Japan and just global. So the total sales in Japan for Dragon Quest IX are 4.35 million. That's according to VG charts. And the closest runner-up was actually Europe, taking second with 0.67 million, followed by North America with 0.63, and a total of 5.79 million units shipped. So between North America and Europe, it was just over 1 million units. And even though nobody's played it, I feel like those who have played it really like it. They're really fond of Dragon Quest IX.
Yeah.
Do you run into that?
Yes. Although, yeah, I guess I see it as perhaps a very vocal minority. I almost see it, people that play this, like when I see, and it's all on Reddit. That's a rabbit hole, but I see it as a badge to wear, to say that you played Dragon Quest 9 and therefore you like it.
Oh, yeah, like I played this back in the day on Wi-Fi or something at McDonald's.
Yeah. Yeah, because we'll get into it, but it's certainly not my favorite of the Dragon Quest. And it is a lot of people's favorite on Reddit when they're talking about it. So I almost think it suits a different player, maybe, than the traditional Dragon Quest gamer. Well, what about you?
Yeah, I feel like it's just internet hearsay for me with Dragon Quest IX. I don't think I've met anyone in person. Well, the thing is, in person, I don't really meet people that have played Dragon Quest or know what it is, really.
Yeah.
But online, I feel like the discourse is like, yeah, Dragon Quest IX has like the coolest customization options and then the cool Wi-Fi things. And I think that's probably what sells it for a lot of people. Clearly, Japan, like this was a phenomenon. And I think that Nintendo took note of it, and like it had some influence on like how they would shape their handheld units going forward, as well as some of their games.
Yeah, it probably, with the multiplayer, and well, we'll get to that later because it's going to be about the Street Pass, or the thing where people
Tag mode.
Yeah, we'll get into that later. But yeah, we're gonna get into some of the reasons why you're seeing the disparity here between sales. Yeah, this is pretty interesting. It's interesting too that Europe beat out North America. Is that hasn't happened in other ones, has it? That we've looked at?
Not usually. I don't recall that. But we also skipped 6, 7, 8, so we'll come back for those later.
Yeah.
TBD.
TBD on that. There's an interview here with IGN that they did with Yuji Horii. And I'm not going to read all of these, but I found this interesting. IGN asks, is there anything you notice in the difference between how American and Japanese reviewers tend to look at turn-based RPGs? Yuji Horii said, I wonder sometimes why the US reviewers are more negative towards turn-based battle systems. Real-time play has fun aspects too, but for this type of game, there is more strategy that comes with the turn-based system. Also, you can play with other people in this game and decide what actions to take together. Now, okay, Yuji Horii is the father, or well, is the head of Dragon Quest, which is the biggest RPG in Japan. I don't know if it's bigger than Final Fantasy. I'm gonna assume it is in Japan, but it's certainly up there. It's 1 or 2, and he's saying that people in America are more negative towards turn-based battle systems. And this is what 2009,
Yeah.
or whatever. Does this?
Oh, for the review. Okay.
Does this shape? Do you think this is part of what's shaping the movement that we got away from turn-based for so long in America? Well, just in general in gaming.
Do I think that the acknowledgement that U.S. audiences don't like turn-based RPGs shaped the U.S. not getting turn-based RPGs after this era for a long time?
Yeah.
I don't know. I really have to see Dragon Quest 8. Yeah, I feel like maybe after 2005, what happened was the 360 really pioneered with live capability and like playing online with people. And I think American gamers, North American, maybe European gamers, valued something different than Japanese gamers in video games. And so you don't see the same numbers, the same sales, the same success. So why would Japan go out of their way to bring their products to us if they're not going to sell as well? And after the DS, the DS era, 3DS era, I guess. And so there was a definitely like a 5-10 year period there where like turn-based RPGs I feel like we were just like they were slim pickings. There were some. 3 and 360, was there a dedicated RPG system?
Yeah, we got on 360 we got Blue Dragon.
360 was Blue Dragon.
There's probably 1 or 2 others, but they're not coming to mind. I think technically Lost Odyssey was turn-based.
Maybe a Star Ocean game on PS3. Maybe The Last Story on Wii. Or wait, no, but Operation Rainfall was like, that was a movement to get RPGs here. That was 3 games because there were none, So like, yeah, I don't know. This mindset is accurate. I don't know if like what the reviewers were saying or doing at the time in North America about these, turn-based RPGs when we were getting them. But I definitely think that from a public perspective, Western audiences were not as engaged in turn-based.
That, you know what? It's so sad that he's saying that because it is at this time that I stopped gaming. Like almost entirely. Because of
Same. 2009, I went to college and I think I just brought my DS. Like I had Mario Kart.
Yeah.
That was it. I was like, oh, I'm done gaming, And I think I just checked out. It's like Wii got a bunch of shovelware crap. So like, I was into Wii for a little bit and then I just stopped caring.
Yeah.
There may have been something systemic there. Like, I don't know.
Because I remember getting an Xbox 360. And I was trying to be a gamer. And it's like, and then they're like, oh, we're releasing Fallout, like a Fallout 3. And I'm like, oh, Fallout's badass. What an awesome RPG. Like, oh, it's also going to be a first person shooter. I just remember thinking that, like, oh, this is also a first person shooter. And there's no offense to Fallout 3. It's a wonderful game. All those games are really good. But to take it into context, every game at that time was a first person shooter. Like everything was an action game, and I was really excited for like a turn based RPG. Fallout isn't necessarily. I mean, it is, but it doesn't. It's not like a Dragon Quest, but it was still an RPG that you could take slower, and you could like learn the story and talk to people and do all this. And they managed to translate it, but everything was turning into a first person shooter. Everything was an action game, and I just felt like. And then I played the Final Fantasy at that time, the Final Fantasy 13. It was like, this is what they give us when they want to give us a turn-based RPG. This crap. So I just shut down. I was like, I'm out. Like games are just not for me anymore. I'm the old man at this point. And it took 5, maybe more years to really get back into gaming again. So he's onto something with this. I couldn't believe it, but this is true. I guess for a time, America did not want turn-based RPGs, at least as far as the reviewers were saying.
From a historical perspective, it's like the Dark Ages, even though it lasted like 5 years, like. But like, I feel like then we've now come into like a golden era.
Yeah.
But the golden era has its own issues.
Yes.
A different issue of like too many RPGs or oversaturation and a lot of sameness.
I agree.
Which is it's a different issue, but one nonetheless. But at that time, it's just a very unique time because like coming into like 2016, when like even something like just the announcement of like, oh, we're gonna get Dragon Quest 7, it's like, that was huge, on 3DS, and it's a remake, but like it was still so cool. Nowadays, I'm kind of just like, okay.
Yeah.
So that was a time to be alive and a gamer.
Let's see. One of the criticisms, this is another IGN question. One of the criticisms of the game has been the reduction of personality in the supporting cast, which is necessary for the multiplayer mode in the game. How did that affect the development of the story? Yuji Horii says, for Dragon Quest IX, one of the biggest things was being able to create your own character and your party members too. The importance of it is that you can customize the face, the name, or something like that, so the party members are really a reflection of you. It becomes more of your own experience, particularly because of the undefined elements of the characters. We wanted it to become part of the player's story. And then they re-ask, so how did that affect the way you thought of the plot? Yuji Horii says, up until this point, Dragon Quest has always had party members you could talk to. Fully agree with that, but either way, with the character customization, you can't do that anymore. In part, that's why we introduced the character Stella. She goes along with your journey and is the person that always talks to you to kind of bridge that. You know what I instantly thought of when I read that? Navi. Oh, go ahead. Sorry. Were you going to say Navi?
I was going to say Navi, okay. Yeah.
Sorry. Slight delay. Yeah, admit, what do you think of not having like a Navi character in Dragon Quest? Do you think it's necessary?
Do I think Stella is necessary in this game? I think if you just ripped Stella out of this game, there would be a void. There'd be a weird void. Like you would just come across the golden train and then like you just pick it up and you just randomly fly it to like the Celestrian village. Like I feel like the way they designed it, Stella is kind of necessary. I also don't think Stella is as annoying as Navi. Navi interrupts you as you're running through Hyrule Field and then like stops you from running and they're like, wait, listen, hey, like it's just super annoying. There's no voice acting on DS, and it's not stopping you midway through combat. So I never found, a lot of reviewers online were trashing Stella, apparently at the time they hated her. I don't think she's that bad.
Yeah, she's pretty inoffensive. The only caveat to that, I'm trying to figure out why it came to this, but if you go to a certain point in the menu, um,
Bestiary. If you're looking
yeah,
at like all of your collection of monsters and items, your almanac,
she'll.
she like gives you a little message like, "Wow, you're really good. You got 50%. You're a real adventurer." But I didn't hate that.
I I remember I had to use it for something. I don't remember what it was, but every time I'd go in there, not every time, but sporadically as I would go in there, she would always talk to me, and I just wasn't really having it. But yeah, she's certainly not an annoying character in the same way that Navi is, and I don't see why people would be so finicky and be like, I hate this character. Which I've read that too on Reddit. They're like, the only thing that sucks about it is that stupid fairy character. It's like
This is your problem.
I have so many other problems with this game. This is like the least of my issues.
Yeah.
But I will say that I think they could have made this without her. And I think it would have felt more like Dragon Quest if they did. Um just like
Okay, wait. So that point, right? About like the not having party members to talk to. I don't know. I don't see this as offensive. I almost see this as like a taking the Dragon Quest 3 system.
yeah, exactly.
Dragon Quest 3 was really good with like I just thought that's really cool how you get full customization about through your party, and I'm glad they brought that back. Like Dragon Quest 7 has like a similar thing where you can change classes, but the characters are established and you can still talk to them. While I do like party chat, I don't think every game in the series has to follow the same formula.
Yeah.
You know, I would probably get bored if they always did the same kind of style. So I didn't hate it here. I thought it worked for what it was. And could there have been more personable elements throughout the story where I felt more rooted narrative wise? Yes, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it needed party chat, nor did it have it. But I didn't even think it needed the character Stella. But I didn't hate it. It was just, especially for the time, it was pretty much understood that that's what they did to give a voice to a game with voiceless characters.
Mhm.
Whew. All right, are you ready to tackle the game?
It's game time, baby.
All right, let's talk about the game of Dragon Quest IX. Let's start with the plot. All right, I'm going to blow through this. Not read the whole thing, but get through as much of this as I can. This just sets up most of it. It begins in the observatory, the floating kingdom of the Celestrians, including the main protagonist. The Celestrians have been trying for some time to reach the realm of the Almighty. However, before they can leave, they require a fruit called the fig. The fruit is very rare, and Yggdrasil, the tree it grows on, also known as the World Tree, must be empowered with benevolence, sorry, it's a made-up word, which are obtained by helping people in the mortal world, known as the Protectorate. By helping and protecting his or her town and earning their thanks, the main character obtains enough benevolence for the World Tree to produce the figs. Just as the Starlight Express that will take the Celestrians to the realm of the Almighty arrives, the Protectorate is attacked from below by a mysterious and powerful force. The force scatters the assembled angels and knocks the figs, the Starlight Express, and the main character down to the Protectorate. The main character awakens without wings or a halo and finds they have been rescued from the base of the waterfall in Angel Falls. Yada, yada, yada. During an adventure to reconnect their village to the nearby castle after landslides caused by the great earthquake, the main character finds the broken down celestial train and its ferry driver, Stella. Stella promises to help the main character return to the kingdom of angels if they can prove they really are a Celestrian. So that is our inciting event, I guess, as they call it.
The overarching plot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you are to do good deeds to save the
Yes.
world.
Celestial of you. And eat figs. My favorite fruit. And Yggdrasils.
Yeah.
We share something in common. Me and a tree.
You're in the tree.
Yeah. We used
Uh,
to pick figs from the backyard, but they're called FYGGs. So I don't know. Look more like pears.
we made Newtons out of them. Uh, this is the whole plot to get you to go from town to town to resolve problems. Much in the way old Dragon Quest didn't really have a reason for you to do it. You just did it. I guess as you progress through the game. This one actually gives you like you'll go here and you'll get a fig for it. And you'll go to this next one and you'll get a fig for it. So it's just more of a way to get you to go do those things. It's
Yeah.
MacGuffin,
Yeah.
as it were.
Totally. Yeah, these are scattered, sporadic. Like I don't feel like any of the events are like exactly unified in terms of like a legitimate context like previous Dragon Quests are. Like I think there's always the looming threat in earlier Dragon Quest games. It's like you can kind of visualize why you're doing this. This is just do good deeds to bring fruit to Yggdrasil and the Celestial Kingdom after you get like knocked off your pedestal. Like I don't seem to like but the idea of like trying to reach the Almighty Kingdom almost seemed like an afterthought.
Yeah.
It just came up later. And I'm not saying that the events are bad. No, the events are some of them are memorable.
Mhm.
We talk about that in a second. I'm just saying that I don't think that this is a toe gripping narrative,
Yeah, to me it feels very much like a different kind of Dragon Quest story. Like the story itself is not as important because they wanted to give you a bunch of setup at the beginning to then ignore really plot during the middle. So they could just be like and granted it makes sense as a multiplayer game because it's like as a multiplayer game you're going to you don't really need any drive beyond I have to get the fig that's there. And they don't have to tie in a whole bunch of narrative to it. They can just send you on your way. Um as a single player experience, I think it does suffer because there isn't really a story. It's more of just a glorified, like very glorified fetch quest throughout this game. Um,
Yes. Definitely just like what do I have to do here in every town? Like who am I trying to save? Like give me my fig.
who ate my fig in this story? Who will puke it out for me?
A lizard.
Um, very very late in the game.
Wait.
Oh, go
Before you
ahead.
get to the end, can we talk about just some of the figs that you do remember?
Oh, sure. Um,
Top
that
5 figs. There's only 5.
to me the best, and really what you're saying, I think is stories.
Yes.
Um, to me the best story, and this is a really cool idea, was the guy that built a town that was just like another town because he could never get back. And so he just built, I can't remember the name of it, but there's a town pretty early in the game that you go to. It's a big tree and it's surrounded by, a town. I really like the architecture in this game, by the way. Exploring the towns is a lot of fun. There's a big tree and there's a town built around it. And it turns out there was a character, he's like a carpenter, that could never get back. Like he had to travel really far and he got old, unfortunately, and was unable to return to that town. So you find out that he built a duplicate of that town made of stone, and you can go visit it, and he's there, and he's just like, I did my best. And or I think it might have just been his spirit that was there at that point. But he did his best, and to him, he resolved it because he just recreated the town and physically created like copies of people that used to be there. And I just think that is a really clever, creative solution to a to a guy's problem, and there's an emotional tie there. I thought that was really cool.
There's also a tie to Dragon Quest 3. With Dragon Quest 3, there's the town that gets it's like the elf village or something that gets like turned to stone.
Or put to
And
sleep.
I think what is it called?
But they put to sleep.
Oh, they put to
Where
sleep.
everyone's like eternally
Oh, that's
asleep.
right. Yeah, so it's not identical, but
Just
that's kind
similar.
of like the feeling that I got was like,
This
but it's
melancholy.
different because this is just a town that's built from the ground up, sculpted like in recollection. So that is super fascinating. And then you find like a gargoyle.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I like that. What about you? What's a good one? Top 5.
Top five. I mean, it's hard for me to qualitatively say one is better than another. I think you were joking about it, but I did like the Leviathan quest where there's like a town where they have a ritual that's like doing well while everyone else is kind of suffering. And they're always bringing in the fish, but they're secretly praying to like a demon god or something. But it ends up being like your father, and he's like the Leviathan whale, and the townsfolk are trying to get this girl to continue doing the ritual, but she wants to stop. I don't remember it exactly, but I thought like the idea of the Leviathan, the big whale, it was like a good fight. You could tell that the town was conflicted, about whether or not to continue doing this. There's like the politics of it. Oh, we have to keep doing this because otherwise you're doing the town a disservice. You're not going to have food for us. And like you said with the architecture, there's like a really cool cave segment going up to that. Like we can see like the waters and there's bridges and stuff that you cross. You have to go behind the town, and I don't know. I kind of liked that mini story.
Yep. The one with the lizard was interesting. I don't know if it's my favorite, but the queen out in the Egyptian area was soaking up all the water, and it tied into her lizard who was running away. You had to go find the lizard, and the lizard ate it, and then it becomes this gigantic monster. Um, which almost could be, I don't know. You could almost look at that as like a Godzilla tale of her like poisoning the water or something. I don't know. Maybe I don't know if that's what they're going for, but it was kind of cool to see it get all big, and it's nice to see the what makes Dragon Quest so fun is that they're almost like little fables or little lessons where the
Yes.
characters learn something, and I like that because too many games, and I love The Witcher 3. I really like that game, but too many games just end poorly for everybody all the
Yeah.
time. And I like Dragon Quest that it has fun, like happy resolutions to things that you feel like you accomplished something when you resolve it. And
Sure.
this game
And
does
it's
that.
not always, and it does it through a lens where it's not always just happiness. Like, cause the so a lot of these characters die. Like, or you're talking to their ghost.
Mhm.
To resolve their ghost lingering conflict. There's almost like a yokai element of this or something, or like Bruce Willis, Sixth Sense. But in that case, you're dealing with flawed characters. You're dealing with a queen who's like shallow and like doesn't trust her. Doesn't really treat any of her people in her palace nicely. Only the lizard, and then the lizard gets it and wants her undying affection and love, and then it kidnaps her and brings her to the basement after eating the fig. Like as it gets corrupt. So really, it's a byproduct of her own malevolence, and there's like a period of reflection and learning in there. So that's why I like that one too. And then the architecture of that castle, like there's a well, there's kind of like an oasis inside the
Yeah.
castle. And comparatively to the area where you have to sail to, it's just vast desert with nothing in it. So it's pretty cool. An understated one also is the Academy, Swine Dimples, where there's like the ghost of a professor, and like anybody who's like talking bad or like saying like negative things, he like bullies them and then brings them down to the basement or something. I don't know. That was really interesting. It's the last fig you have to get, but like a level of darkness there. He possesses their souls and then makes them like come down and learn his lectures.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Is that really the last figure you're supposed to get?
Before you go back to the observatory, yeah.
That is so funny because maybe that's why I had to farm for so long, was because that was not the last one that I got. That was like, I think I got like 3 or 4 after it.
Oh, interesting.
So I was like farming to get. I was like, this guy's tough, dude. They're farming up.
I wonder why the next one is so easy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I blew through it. That makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
That makes sense. Um,
I followed a guide, so
the
my doing.
there were a couple others. They didn't really stand out to me that much. Um, like the one where you're in the plains and there's just an evil witch that's controlling the king of the area, and you got to do a couple things with a large beast.
It's like these nomad tribes that are living in huts. Yeah, and you take the son, and the king is being manipulated by the wife.
And
He
the white
married a monster.
and then the monster turns out like you defeat the monster, but it just becomes friends with the other beast.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of how I felt about the Leviathan quest in a sense. Like, because I was like, well, you're fighting the demon god who's providing, but is also wreaking havoc in a sense, and it's your father. Like, why is it your father? Like, what? you know,
Yeah,
like
there's
you're throwing too much at me.
some of them they may have overreached their grasp. Uh, and they there's one where everyone's sick. I don't know, the earlier ones didn't. I really like the White Knight. I gotta say that's one of my favorites, and I've done that one a couple times because every time I've restarted this, that's the first one.
Mhm.
And it's cool that he thinks he's just been asleep or whatever or dead for so long that he thinks that the current princess is his wife from years ago, and so he's like hunting her and doing all this stuff, and I like that. That's a funny concept, and it plays on the idea of chivalry that he never gave up,
Mm.
despite being like 400 years later. Or something. I like that idea. You ready to talk about Corvus?
Sure.
Okay, this happens practically at the end of the game. There's a character called Corvus, and they throw a lot of cutscenes at you. that okay, and I'm not going to be 100% correct on this, and maybe you have better memory, but he falls in love. He's an angel, a Celestian, I should say, that falls in love with a human, which they've done that concept before in Dragon Quest. But he falls in love with a human, and then through a series of circumstances, it would appear to him that he was betrayed and attacked. And because of that, he hates humanity or the protectorate, and it's his desire to see everyone destroyed, and he's the supervillain of everything. Uh, this all happens in like a couple cutscenes after you've done everything we've talked about.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. After you've gotten all the major fakes, it's like, well, here's one. It's so confusing. Yeah. And I'm just like, wait, what? This is the main antagonist and plot? Like, it's just so confusing. Also, I'm not clear. Did his girlfriend died or she
Yes,
lived, but he thought that she betrayed him or both?
she died, and because you're talking to her spirit, she appears like very sporadically to talk to you, and yeah, she gets killed. But at the time, he thought that she called people to kill him. It's
Yeah.
it's like a whole thing, and it's
Yeah, because he was gonna go to war for them, and then she was like, "No, stay back." But the father was spying on her, and the father brought the people there. Or so, I don't know. I'm a little lost with it.
it all happens so fast and
Yeah.
never mentioned at all to you that this could even happen. And at the same time, I believe, and this probably gets fleshed out in some of the side quests. Wish it was fleshed out in the story that I could understand. Um, he seems to have influenced an army to be raised that uh, will serve as his underlings. And they capture you and put you in prison, and you obviously break out and then go finish the game. Really, really sloppy storytelling for me. Granted, a lot of the Dragon Quest, the enemy doesn't really appear until later anyway. But usually there's like an allusion to it, and they say like some of the characters are like, man, things just ain't right now, or something. You know, this things haven't been right since Corvus had a thing, and they're like, who's that? And like, well, we don't know yet. But
Yeah.
they point to something. This game completely ignores that entirely until it just drops lore on you at the very end.
And it throws you a curveball with Ocula, the bald-headed angel.
Yes.
Because he steals all your figs, makes your train crash, summons a dragon. And so you're thinking, oh, he's going to be the bad guy. But he brought the figs back and then brought the dragon down to the Monster King, but then tries to get a strike on him and then loses. It's just...
It's
And then Corvus is in the basement. I just don't like it is very sloppy.
Dude, Ocula is playing some 4D chess, is what it seems like, because his assumption was, if I can make Corvus think that I'm on his side by doing these bad things to get him what he wants, it will lead me to a position where I can attack him and kill him.
But it's not Corvus. It's the king monster.
Or the king monster, yeah.
The one sitting on the throne.
Yeah. It was like, there was like a lot of moving pieces for that. That was like Metal Gear Solid levels of manipulating what's going on to achieve a goal. It was like, Jesus, can't you just be like a good guy? Like, wouldn't that make it so much easier? It was all kinds of strange. I don't know. I'm just not really buying the story. And I don't think you're necessarily meant to. I think the story was an afterthought in this, and it was just like, let's make a multiplayer Dragon Quest that people can play with their friends.
It worked. Nobody cared. That's a bad sign.
Yeah, I think you're right.
That's not what I want for Dragon Quest going forward.
Yeah, it's a bad precedent.
Yeah.
Boy. Story was the weak part of this game for sure. I think. You know, ironically, you won't hear that on the Reddit. I was reading about this because I was just reading, like, trying to understand the post game, which we'll get into. But they're like, everything gets explained in the post game. And I have some serious problems with that. Because, well, we'll get into it more, but I'll just say this. When the game came out, there wasn't so much post game. The post game was DLC that they slowly doled out. And if you go into the forums, like the Game Fact forums, you can see in 2010 they're like, when are they going to release the content? Like, because I don't know what happens and yada yada yada. There were people that leveled their characters to level 99 before the post game came out, just so that they can steamroll through it. I don't. I have a lot of issues from the storytelling perspective of this game that I hope I'm glad didn't make it into Dragon Quest 11, I guess.
And DLC that's lost to time. I don't know if you found a way to experience that.
I did.
Okay, we'll get there.
And it's ridiculous.
Okay.
But this game is definitely built on its gameplay. So let's talk about some of the gameplay aspects of it. This is classic Dragon Quest. It's turn-based. And as much as the guy doesn't want to say it, it's your classic JRPG in most ways. But it does offer a couple things that at the time were not necessarily standard. First one we got on here is on-screen enemies. Boy, do I love this.
This is an adoption from Dragon Quest 8. No, it's not, because Dragon Quest 8 on the PS2 did not have on-screen enemies. So this is actually the first.
Yep.
Okay, retracted.
Yeah, we've got on-screen enemies, um, abilities versus magic, which started, I believe, in 5, but they really have amped it over the years, and this is it at its peak at the time. So abilities can cost magic, but oftentimes don't. MP, I should say. Whereas magic pretty much always costs your MP to some extent. Abilities also get transferred over if you're
Not
switch.
exactly.
They don't. I thought that was the whole point. Is
Only vocational abilities. But if you don't have omnivocational on a weapon slot, we'll get to that, okay? I'll talk about
gotcha,
it.
gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. I was gonna say because I saw my sword abilities, but that was probably because I did have omnivocational, so that would make sense. And then a combat multiplier, which I found completely mishandled and was worthless.
Oh, you
Uh,
know what? It had so much potential.
yeah,
When you start the game, when you have no magic and no abilities, it's like, yeah, you need this to really thrive. In fact, the way it works is it only works with physical attacks. So if you land your physical attacks in succession without a monster interrupting you, and you do them on the same monster, you can get 1x to 1.2x to 1.5x to 2.0x, which theoretically, your slowest classes are your strongest. Your warriors, paladins, martial arts would be strong, but he starts the thread anyway. The only issue with that is you probably have a priest and a mage. So why are you doing, like, I guess it would build up the multiplier. It's interesting, but like it doesn't really come to any good use. So I don't know.
yeah. I was so looking forward to it, but and the problem is too is that when using these physical classes, you are way better off using abilities, not using a generic physical attack.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
it's completely wasted because like it I do not
You shouldn't have even
understand.
been there.
I
Yeah.
I don't understand. And they could have made something really cool with that, like you're saying. Like if they could have said type of attack or something a little more broad that you can see the scaling better. But no, it's literally just the same attack.
Well, here's a hypothetical for you. Let's say you have a class of 4 warriors or a class of 4 martial artists who are all at approximately the same speed and are leveling up the same. You could get multipliers just by doing attacks, and you could just stock up on medicinal herbs. So there is a possibility to use it in a way. It's just that for the standard player, you won't.
Yeah, yeah. You could build. You're right. You could build a team around it, and then one person hits really fucking hard at the end of a turn or something. But that's if you don't get interrupted.
That's what I'm saying, though, is that by leveling up the same class, you'll have the same stats. So
Well,
hypothetically, you wouldn't get interrupted.
hypothetically, but agility is based on a dice roll, like turn order, and it's affected by your agility. But if an enemy is similarly agile, he could theoretically interrupt it, and that part is would be annoying for that strategy.
Right, but my warrior would never attack first. So regardless of the dice roll, while it's affected, you know, I think that a class of character will
You could,
still
yeah,
dictate when you would go,
if
you
you
know?
built the whole thing under the assumption that the enemy's just going to attack first, you could probably make that work. That
Or if you're a martial artist, which would probably be an agile class because their vocational stats are agility.
yeah, yeah, you could try
Uh,
that too.
I with it.
But
But we
it's
are talking about classes,
we are.
and there are a lot.
Do you want to go to that classes?
Sure. Yeah, can I do this one?
Yeah, go for it.
There are a total of 12 character classes. There is an all trades abbey. Yes, that is the name for the Dragon Quest IX version. 6 of them are unlocked from the start, and 6 you unlock through optional quests. Your main character starts as a minstrel, and once you complete the All Trades Abbey quest, you can change to a warrior, priest, mage, martial artist, or thief. But in the beginning of the game, you can also recruit characters at an inn and make them any of those 5 classes. 6 bonus classes that you can unlock through quests and are very cool and have their own unique abilities are Paladin, Gladiator, Armamentalist, Ranger, Sage, and Luminary. Let's talk briefly about what each of these classes do. A warrior is kind of a heavy hitter, a priest is a healer, a mage is a magic attacker, a martial artist is an agile attacker, a thief can steal and also can do some support. And the minstrel is kind of a jack of all trades class, so it actually suits your main character pretty well in the beginning, but kind of becomes useless as you get later in the game. What are your experiences with the first 6 classes?
I had a mage end game, so I like the mage a lot for one spell because it's always worked in Dragon Quest, and it's called Oomph. And that spell is insanely overpowered. Always has been. Um, I liked the martial artist, maybe because not necessarily for the martial art, but for the claws, which I the claws themselves have a really cool move that does 2 attacks that cost no mana. So that was huge.
Ooh, that's Alina style. Dragon
Absolutely.
Quest 4.
Thief, I never touched except for to upgrade a sword skill. Uh,
Okay.
Warrior is awesome, but beaten by another class later. Priest, I found probably got good, but I didn't level it up past 30 something. Um, and then minstrel is your starting one, which yeah, when like at first you're like, whoa, this is pretty cool, until you realize you're a freaking minstrel, and then it's like, oh, like I'm supposed to like kind of buff my team, I guess, and then not much else. So you'll want to get rid of that as soon as you can. What about you?
I also liked Mage for Kafrizzle,
Yeah.
which is like the highest power single attacking attack. And then I forget if there was Boom, but there was also like Crackle, which is like a attack all enemies. And when I was just going through dungeons, I would just spam that. And I'd have an item that would restore magic power as I walked. So the mage became super OP, never had to change. I think I had never changed that class to get other ability points. I didn't even level up the wand. I leveled up the vocational skill just for the magic power and the extra magical might, which is your magic attack power. The warrior is super buff. You have the shield, so that's useful as far as defense. It's kind of a tank. I had a spear warrior, which we're going to talk about like the weapon skills in a second, but the spear was super useful because especially for metal slimes, there was an attack that would be a critical hit attack that hits maybe 30% of the time. So that was kind of my go-to is like get in a battle with a metal slime, accelerate the party, which never got the warrior fast enough, even for the liquid metal slime, and then use the spear thruster to take down the metal slime. And I'd be farming super hard for XP by doing that. I think going forward, I would probably have 2 spear classes to try and like knock out the liquid metal slime, a little faster.
Mhm.
Priest was super helpful, but I never got Kazing. I only had Zing. Kazing comes super late, like level 45, which you don't need to be that high for the end game. So, I mean, I still appreciated multi heal. That was super helpful for me. And then I don't think I really used the priest for much else. As far as attacks go, I never bothered with making the priest an attacker. I tried to make him a sage at the end, but it wasn't worth it.
Eh.
Did not use martial artist except for getting some quick vocational skills. Did not use thief. Minstrel, my main character was a minstrel, and I found that out at level 34, and I was like, oh shit. So I quickly switched him to warrior and then one of the bonus classes.
All right, you want to tell us about these bonus classes?
Sure, I don't know all of them. I think like an armamentalist can like make you better with like some kind of elemental defenses or something. The ranger's like a bow user. I had never been able to buy a bow for a character. Um, Sage is kind of your multi-purpose healer magic user, and Luminary is like an extension of Minstrel, basically to buff the party. Interesting that that's an option, but that only comes up in post game. You can't get Luminary in the main game. I messed with Paladin and Gladiator. I thought I could get away with having a Gladiator by just making my main character the Gladiator, and that would carry the team. But I needed some defense for him because I didn't have. You can't put a shield on a Gladiator. He's basically just an attacker, unless you have omnivocational shield usage, and I did not want to level up that skill tree. So what I did was I made my warrior a paladin, and he has a skill called Whipping Boy. In order to get the paladin class, you have to do a quest that makes you use Whipping Boy 10 times. Doesn't sound like fun, but it helps you with your paladin, and you can take the damage for other characters. There is a skill later for the paladin class that lets you take damage for the whole party, but my paladin wasn't high HP enough to do that, so it wasn't great. And I think one of the things I didn't like about this system was that it comes up so late in the game with like finding these quests, finishing these quests, that these characters are now super underleveled and not able to be fully used to their full potential. But my Gladiator was stronger than my level 34 Minstrel at probably like level 20.
Yeah. Yeah, I did Gladiator and Sage. I changed both my mage and my priest to a Sage. Didn't like where it was headed for my mage because I wanted oomph, so I switched back. But I kept the Sage on the priest, so the priest just became a Sage. And as soon as you get multi-heal, that's basically all you do. It sucks, but I wish it was a little more complex, but that's all you're going to do. My main character went from minstrel to warrior to gladiator, and then when I realized I couldn't use a shield, became a mage and leveled up shield as much as I could on there. Switched to priest, leveled up shield as much as I could on there, and eventually got my gladiator to use a shield. So that my main character was a beast. And then my martial artist became a gladiator and never looked back. It just hit really hard, I guess. I would switch back to keep leveling up the martial artist part of it, but that's it. Apparently in the post game, it's like mandatory that everybody has omnivocational shield. So that's what you would do, is level up the shield on everybody, but don't matter. I was really looking forward to this aspect, and I was a little bit let down with the bonus classes. I think 3 and then 6 and 7 all do these really, really well. And I don't know. I don't think level 5 system works as well for the switching classes. I
think hypothetically it should, because characters can share weapon classes or shield classes. Every character class has 4, some including the shield, some not. So you can switch to another class and you can be leveling up that weapon or that shield, and the traits will carry over. And then if it doesn't, you can just put another 12 in and get omnivocational, like Giga Sword or whatever, and then like it'll carry over. I think that where it suffers is like, well, I don't really want to, and I don't really want to like start again from scratch, but you kind of have to kind of buff up your characters. Every character class has vocational skills, which are useful. Like it'll boost stats that I need. I think pretty much everyone, I went to warrior or thief or something, and I got like 10 HP just by putting like 4 slots in or something. I don't know, 4 skill points. But I think it's just too complex and it's too annoying. Because if I want to grind, I just want to keep my level the same. I don't want to start over. It's good that you don't have to start the other class over if you want to go back to it. I feel like Dragon Quest III, you had to do that.
I think
you had
so.
to restart your entire level, which you don't usually get to that point. It's not like, I don't think you'd ever feel like you messed up that bad. But I still find it convoluted. I do like that if you level up a sage enough, you get a skill that lets you just do it on the battlefield, change the class.
Yeah.
It's called like Jack of all trades. So it makes it easier. But It's a weird system. I think Dragon Quest VIII had something like this too, right?
Not a changing classes system, but it had the
No, but
same,
a skill tree.
yeah, the same points based skill tree situation.
I like the skill tree.
Yeah.
I like feeling like I have some control over what kind of character my character is going to be. I think one thing that might have benefited this is like a skill point reset feature.
Yeah.
You just like pull back all your skill points and reallocate them.
Yeah, that
Would have
would have
made this
helped.
feel less tedious, you know?
I agree. That that was weird. Like I at one point I didn't realize that you could store your points until a little bit later in the game. So I had maxed out my gladiator, not my main character, but my other character that was a gladiator. I maxed that out and I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do with all these points I keep getting because I don't want to switch her because I have to do damage and so that one's just gonna stay that. But I don't know what to do with these points, so I just shoved them in like swords or something and didn't realize it's like, oh, like you don't have to use the points, you can just switch to other classes and use them or whatever. I didn't even think about that. And so I lost some of the points. It would have been nice to have some kind of restoring function. But you know, it didn't. The thing is, like I bet you all this stuff matters a lot more in the post game, but in the regular game, you are totally fine at like an average of around 38, level 38 or so. You don't really need to go too deep into all this.
Yeah. But if you wanted to, I mean, you can. Like it, you can optimize your party.
You know,
I think, go ahead.
well, people did that with 3, which I always found interesting. Is how
Yeah, right, because 3 is like the easiest of the NES games.
Yeah, it's not like a hard game and you don't have to get that strong, but people really did min-max that game. And more power to you, but it seems unnecessary. But there's a group of people that does like to do that.
If you were to give somebody kind of like a guide to making the best classes in Dragon Quest IX for a standard playthrough and a post-game playthrough, but we'll come back to that. Making the best classes for a standard playthrough, what would you advise?
You need one will be a gladiator with the caveat that you have to max shield. So you have to get omnivocational shield. Because a gladiator with a shield is a monster. One should be a sage. But again, at like highest, obviously the thing is the highest level you can get.
Can I stop you for a second? So you want the gladiator to have a shield. Which class should it start as?
Probably the warrior. Probably. But anything that gives it physical damage. You could argue the martial artist to get more agility. But it's not necessary because they'll be strong enough that it's not like a spell is going to kill them.
Yeah.
So it should be all right. As long as you can max that shield. And then probably a sword or any like item that doesn't take up any too much slot. So yeah, probably a sword or a spear or something.
The axe is super helpful for that gladiator too. It's a heavy hitter. But I did like the sword. The sword gets Falcon Slash, which is a 2-hitting attack.
Unfortunately, costs mana. And the gladiator has, I think my gladiator at the end of the
16.
game had like 20 something at the very end.
But it's like 2 mana or 4 mana. So you get a couple Falcon Slashes in.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you'll want a sage, in an ideal world. But the sage is a little bit weaker than it was in Dragon Quest 3.
You want a sage from a mage or a priest?
Priest. To me,
Why?
oomph is too powerful to give up. And I don't know if a sage gets oomph. I certainly didn't get it on my playthrough. If they can get it, cool. The problem is you need somebody that's going to multi-heal. Because you cannot play this game without like multi-heal. It's pretty much required. So,
By the way, a sage does not get oomph.
oh, oof.
Oof.
Yeah, to me, the mage is then a required class, and the priest would become a sage.
The sage also gets multi-heal super early, like level 24, so it's not that bad.
Yeah, yeah. Like when I was playing, my priest never got multi heal. I just switched to a sage and got multi heal pretty quickly, and then I never looked back.
A priest gets oh well yeah. Okay, they get multi-heal at level 38.
Never got there.
Yeah.
And then for a third, I don't know. Probably just another gladiator. I mean, that's what I did was
Well,
gladiator.
you want a mage to have oomph,
Yeah,
right? That's your third.
yeah.
Okay.
And then they just get whatever goes along with being a mage. Kaboom, Kafrizzle.
Yeah.
That's really it. The Dragon Quest is not a complex game. One character just uses multi heal and Kabuff, and then one character does oomph and Kafrizzle. Realistically, because in a boss fight, Kaboom doesn't matter. And then the other characters hit really hard with their swords and
I think there's another issue in that a lot of the late end game bosses will just decrease your buffs with Disruptive Wave. So you have to keep rebuffing them.
Yeah.
I really find that it's important to be able to take some hits in this game. So while I like the idea of a paladin, I think for a standard playthrough to go back and to get that after is too tough. But your mage and your priest will get knocked out so easily that it's almost worth considering. The sage too. The sage HP is crap.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can put some stock in resilience and HP, but it's tough. So I guess my playthrough, and you know, by the way, one of these classes, if the vocational skill, if you put like 4 points in it, you get Whipping Boy, which takes a hit for another character. Yep, it's Warrior. A warrior gets it with 8 skill points in the Courage vocational skill. So I definitely recommend having 1 to 2 warriors, and you can kind of play with the weapons. I recommend having some kind of metal attacking, thing. A liquid metal slime is going to be your best XP farm for grinding in this game. Gives you 40,000 XP, and there's an easy way to kind of farm them because you can see them on the map in this game, not like with previous games where it's random encounters. So it's actually quite easy to farm intentionally in this game. And the spear is super helpful. A sword is helpful with metal slash. So I think it's up to you if you want like 2 swords, 2 spears. And then I think you need a priest for healing abilities. And then the fourth is really up to you. Probably a mage. Some people might want to go sage. It's up to you. You could take your priest and make it a sage, and then you could just have a ball with the fourth. I kind of agree that I don't think there's like a necessary fourth. You could do 3 warriors, have a blast, kick some ass.
Yeah. Do you want to go over the skill trees?
I think we kind of did.
Kind of did. Yeah, everyone has their vocational skills which get passed on. That's about it. I
have
Oh, go ahead.
a section on multiplayer in
Okay.
my guide.
Yeah, go ahead.
So
Because
I'll
we
take
did.
this
I
one.
mean, full disclosure, we didn't play this multiplayer at all.
Right, it's not possible. I mean, unless we're like Wi-Fiing it, a local Wi-Fiing it up, that's not happening.
Yeah.
I do want to say that though this game is pitched as a multiplayer experience, this 500-page guide by Brady Games has 4 pages on multiplayer.
Whoa.
So I don't know that while it's frequently pitched that way, that I agree that Dragon Quest IX today, or even back in the day, is or was ever a primarily multiplayer experience, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
There are multiplayer features, but I feel like they were an afterthought.
Interesting. Okay.
Couple things I want to mention. The Reportal Hosts versus guests, differences between multiplayer and single player, and then the shopping service, the DLC, and tag mode. So by stepping through the portal, which happens at the inn where you bring one of the first characters in the game, you can share an adventure with 3 guests in your world, or you can join others in another world. The other players must be nearby so you can connect via a local wireless communication. Now, me personally, I've never been in a room with 3 other people with Nintendo DSs. Would I like to be? Yeah. I just have never set up that kind of meetup on the Meetups app. And I don't know anybody who's that dedicated to Dragon Quest. In Japan, that's different. You know, Japan has a big Dragon Quest base. So I could see that being a big, communal community thing over there. Select visit another world to join a player's world, or choose invite friends from other worlds to start a multiplayer game. Your game is automatically saved before it attempts to connect to any game. Invite friends, your game searches for nearby players who are in turn searching for a world to join. 3 players may join your party, but you must unload any extra characters you have in your party. Having more players in your party results in earning more experience in battle. Items that are usually tough to come by may be easier to obtain in battle in multiplayer. Guests are able to visit towns and dungeons they may not have reached in their own world. So the whole point of this is really to have some buddies to go along in the main quests of Dragon Quest IX or the post game. How do you feel about that as a multiplayer feature?
That is a fine multiplayer feature. It's really good for post game. I just think it, and we've discussed why, but I think it negatively impacts the normal game that they had to design it with that in mind. Is that it's like, well, we have to really dumb down this game because it's going to be very logistically strange. We have too much going on story wise while people are just hopping into people's games, and so I could see that was a problem for that. But it makes a lot of sense for the post game, especially looking at the grottos, that they're just meant to be toured through with multiplayer. Especially hearing earlier about their Diablo influences, I think that makes a lot of sense.
I think it also makes sense if you think about the customization settings in this game. One, for experience, you get skill points pretty easily. Let's say you're starting battles on the battlefield.
Yeah.
But the other is there's an alchemy component to this game, which I really didn't mess with and I just completely neglected, where you can make like swords and shields and all types of weapons and items that are like rare and have special abilities. Which, I mean, this is a game where you can see the items on the weapons and the apparel on your characters. So I mean, if I knew that like there's a 5% chance of a drop from for freaking rusty swords from, I don't know, like some metal creature or golem or something, like then that might be interesting. But as it stands, I just think it's too obscure for me to care about. And also, I do agree that it would negatively impact the experiencing of the main storyline because, like, I don't want to rush through it. I want to enjoy it and see the stories unfold as it is.
Mhm.
So for the mainline game, I think it's kind of pointless. For the post game, I'll take your word on it that it would benefit it. Um, Differences between multiplayer and single player. The host must meet any requirements for challenge quests. The host must talk to any story related characters, I think it's supposed to say, and grotto bosses to fight them. So in this case, you would have to be hosting the game, and like let's say you're doing like a level 40 mage quest, you'd have to have a level 40 mage as the host. So you want to intentionally pick the right host who's like further in the game or something. Saving while in someone else's world only saves your level and items. Only the host can open red chests, but anyone can open blue ones. The contents of a blue chest change between players. Some spells and items will only work for you. These include Zoom, Evac, Vanish, Evacuate, Chimera Wings, and Holy Water. Tools with a rarity of 0 can be given to other players. You must be nearby that player to trade. Each player can use an inn separately. Time of day does not change unless the host stays. Zoom and Chimera Wings can only be used to travel to places the host has visited. Hosts are the only players that can control the ship and Starflight Express. Fighting in multiplayer. When a player runs into a monster, any nearby players automatically join the fight. Other players that were too far away or unable to join can join the fight by approaching the battle and pressing A. The host can also call players by using the call to arms command from within the battle. All players control their own actions. Everyone must select flee in order to have a chance of leaving the battle. Does that sound like something that would have benefited you in post game?
Um, it okay. It would have been fun to go into it with that experience in mind. I think there's a missing component here that again might make more sense in Japan, but does not make sense here is communication. Um,
You don't find the DS commands serve you well?
no, the going that does not.
Wait, keep in mind that this is local.
Yeah, but the assumption would be that you're all sitting around together in like a room, right?
In a cafe or
In
something.
a cafe. So you all would have to agree to leave to run away from a battle. So you're all having to like constantly look up and be like, "We're getting out of here." Yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's run away. If somebody was a troll, they could hold you up, and I have friends that would do that. So we'd probably learn very quickly not to play with them. But I don't know. There's issues with that. But as far as like if we were understood that that's how we're gonna play, then yeah, I think that would be a pretty fun experience, and I'd be curious to try that. I guess in a way where that's leading into MMORPGs like the next game. But
I think it'd be fun to like just dig around with it for an hour.
yeah, it would be a curiosity, I think, more than anything else.
Yeah, I might almost say like we should like try that someday, like if we're in person again or something, or we'll just say we did it, like, but I don't know that I would care to like go through all the challenge quests to do that. There are a couple other things they suggest using this for. It helps the host advance the story. You can explore more grottos. The host starts the treasure map for the party to explore. Uh, you can grab reagents for your alchemy. You can defeat metal monsters. Um, I guess that makes sense if you split up and try and find them in grottos. I don't know. And there are like grotto exclusive monsters that you don't see in the main game, like better metal monsters that you can fight. And you can exchange unused items. You can share them with other players. Maybe if like you were doing the alchemy thing and you needed something, maybe that would benefit you. The Dragon Quest VC virtual console, I guess, shopping service with Selma. Talk to Selma in the Quester's Rest Inn to access the DQVC shopping service. This becomes available once you visit Newid Island. Here you can find rare items and additional quests. Before you can use this, you need to set up your Wi-Fi. You can do this from the main menu or through Selma. The shopping list contains 6 types of items, and you can only purchase so many of each. You're able to connect once per day, and each time the shopping list is updated. It allows you to buy items that can't be found at other stores, and sometimes at cheaper prices. The shopping list is different for every player, and they expire after a while. There is more to gain while connected to DQVC. There are additional quests that can be downloaded. Challenge quests 121 through 184. Special guests from previous Dragon Quest games may also visit your inn. These include characters that we're familiar with, like Alina, Carver, Nera, Maya. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's approximately 31 characters from previous Dragon Quest games that would visit your inn if they stay at the Quester's Rest Inn. I don't know. That could be a cool Dragon Quest cameo. But is it necessary? No. But would I like it? Yeah. Would I like to play with Carol? Yangus? Hell yeah. Or at least see them. Uh, do you feel like you're missing out by not having access to the shopping service?
Shopping service? No. think so.
How about those like 60 challenge quests?
Well, yes, you are physically missing out, and I'll explain that in the post game. But you are, if you consider the post game part of the real game, which some Dragon Quest it is and some it isn't. Um, Generally speaking, I would say no, but in this game, it could probably be argued that understanding the post game will help you understand the main game better. So I would say yes, and that's one of my biggest complaints about this game.
The last thing is tag mode. Talk to Aaron at the Quester's Rest Inn and select Canvas for guests. This puts your game into tag mode. Close the DS. As you pass other players in tag mode, you gain guests at the inn. Take a completed treasure map with you to trade with the guests. Don't worry, your copy remains in your inventory. Your adventures are saved automatically. Does that sound useful for you for the post game? Exchanging completed treasure maps? In tag mode, you don't even have to connect with people. You just have to close the DS, and as it picks up Wi-Fi signals, it will send those guest treasure maps to your inn.
And you get to pick the one that you're going to trade? Like that's what it said, like you pick one and then it trades that, theoretically?
You pick which one you trade.
Yeah, and so the one you get back is whatever they pick.
Yes.
Yeah, that could be helpful. Specifically if they have a certain kind of treasure map that I was looking for and never found. It's not that hard to plow through treasure maps on your own, but I guess if you found a particularly cool one, which I can't fathom, but if you found a particularly cool one that you wanted to share, that would be neat. If it had a high metal slime count or something like that.
That's the multiplayer section. 4 pages.
Okay. I'm going to tackle the post game here. It has some elements of the multiplayer in it. I do want to preface that we are speaking of the Dragon Quest IX on the DS. If there's any remake, this will probably get completely changed or whatever. So this doesn't affect that. But there is a post game, a very substantial one in this. And stop me when I lose you. Because this is going to get weird. As soon as the game ends, the game ends when you become basically a human and you lose your celestial powers, and you're just going to be immortal now. Well, the emotional tie of that was that you can no longer see the Starflight Express and Stella and I forgot the guy, can't remember his name, but they become invisible to you. You don't see them anymore, and you lose sight of that. Literally, the first quest line after the post game is you need to be able to see the Starflight Express again. So you go through some stuff and just re-see it. Very, very lazy storytelling. Very counterintuitive, I would say, to what the whole point of the first part was about. But that's what happens is you're able to see it again after completing a quest. It gets a little weirder because you have to get DLC. They were added later, and it's like quest 159, I think. 158, 159. I think it's 159. And they will be given to you automatically when you go to, what was her name again? The lady that gives the shop. Selma?
Selma? Yeah.
Yeah. She will give it to you automatically. Here's the problem. It's 2020.
Wait, what does she give you automatically?
The quests. She'll give you 159.
Okay.
I think specifically that one. And then you take it from there. Here's the problem. It's 2022. And this was a DS game. And you have to connect to DS Wi-Fi. And for whatever reason, they have to be in a they strip these servers out, so they no longer exist. Just like connecting to Wi-Fi. So there is a way to do it. I'm going to outline that right now. First thing you have to do is connect to Nintendo Wi-Fi. You can do that in the options. You can actually do that within the game, which I didn't realize, but I did it outside of it. In the actual 3DS menus, you can get in the settings, you can get to a place where it's connected DS Wi-Fi. So you'll have to do that. I think you can also do it in the game. So take that as it will, but I did it in the system settings. Another problem is that Nintendo DS Wi-Fi, you're not allowed to have security. So if your Wi-Fi has a password, it's unusable. So what?
When you say your Wi-Fi, are you talking about your router?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what I did was use my phone as a Wi-Fi hotspot and then remove the password. So it's just like an open connection. And then connected my 3DS to that using the Nintendo DS Wi-Fi connection.
Damn,
And
that's so shady, because if you're like in an apartment or something, you can't just take off your security. You know?
I highly recommend you turn it off immediately after getting these quests, because yeah, you do not want people on there.
Yeah.
When you make the connection to the Wi-Fi, you also have to set a primary DNS, because it's going to lead to a specific server that actually has these DLC on it. Because otherwise it doesn't exist. There isn't. Those have been stripped out. They no longer exist. So your primary DNS has to be 172.104.88.237.
Put it on the screen.
There you go. Okay.
You do that in
So
the clip.
so when you do that, you don't set a secondary DNS. That'll just be blank. Now you can go into the game and go to Stornway and go talk to Selma and go into that store, and she will instantly give you the quest 159 that you'll now have to follow.
So the DNS, that's on the system settings on the DS or 3DS.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you do this from an original DS?
Yes. You'll still have to do the DNS server.
Yeah.
Okay. But you won't have to go to specifically.
Wait, a DS can connect to Wi-Fi?
Yes. No, that's how this all worked.
Well, but a 3DS connects because the internet settings are still relevant. But a DS connects to the internet? A original hardware DS, DS Lite, DSi?
I would assume that that function didn't get removed, because it still exists. DS connection.
Okay.
I did on the 3DS, so if it doesn't work on the DS, upgrade people. Okay, so once you have the quest, 159, you will follow that around to do a couple quests. They're pretty simple enough, and eventually you'll get to quest 162. And 162, a guy needs an item, and that item will only come from defeating a grotto where the name ends with fear. I think it's fear, but it might be something different, but I'm pretty sure it's fear. Because all the grottos are like level 1 grotto of joy or grotto of luck or something. And this one has to end with fear, which apparently is a higher level grotto. So your characters will have to be higher level generally to get a good chance of seeing it.
What level would you say that is?
You have
45?
You have a thing in your thing that probably tells it better than I could. Because I never hit it. But
I have a thing that says...
Yeah, you showed me one that shows the grottos and what levels they have to be. I may even have it in my text. Let's see if I can pull it out.
Treasure maps? That part?
Yes.
Yeah, approximate treasure Map level based on factors.
Yeah, that's what you want to see.
So what am I looking at right now? The max level of characters 40, level of completed grotto 30,
And then
level
the
of map 4 to
level of
38.
map is going to be your thing.
Um,
So
and the map level you're looking for is what?
I don't know. It's definitely it's got to be. I would
Max is out at 99.
yeah. I would wager. I don't know, 31 to 68 range or something, or maybe
That's
16 to
level
59.
60 characters is that range.
Yeah, my character was level my highest was my mage at level 48 and I never got to it. So I'm going to assume it's somewhere after that. This is ridiculous. This all of this to go to the Tower of Nod, which you can get to anyway once you get the um Starflight Express, which turns into like a flying ship that the other ones would have, where you can like land on land masses. And so using that, you can get to the Tower of Nod, but the dragon's sleeping. Dragon's name is Nodoff, which is funny. But
Really not off.
yeah, always puns. All of this is to fight him, which maybe he's hard. I have no idea. I gave up. This is dumb. Clearly meant to be a multiplayer Diablo-esque dungeon crawler for hours and hours and hours doing what looks like procedurally generated dungeons over and over again. This was miserable. And if people like this, I don't. More power to you, I guess. This is a waste of time. This is horrible.
That's how you do it.
Yeah.
That's the how-to. How to connect to DS Wi-Fi in 2022 to complete your Dragon Quest IX post-game content. That's to get your challenge quests.
Don't recommend.
Am I understanding this right? That's to get the challenge quest so
Yeah.
you can officially complete the game.
Yes.
Okay.
So if you want to do the post game,
so
you have
why
to do that.
why do you want those 60 challenge quests?
Well, one, you don't. But two, if you wanted them, you could do so you can flesh out the story and get more there's probably good items that they drop from it.
You get more relevant details about like Corvus and that?
Apparently. And the army that was arisen at the end of the game that you have no idea why. There's a story about that gets fleshed out more.
I guess it gives you more to do in multiplayer if you're playing with people.
That to me is the driving factor, is that you're supposed to play it multiplayer and treat it like a dungeon crawler at that point.
Interesting.
That's what it felt like, because it was nothing but going into just treasure map, grotto. We'll go downstairs, fight the boss, start over. There is a unique. The grottos are interesting because of the treasure map thing. It's kind of cool because you see the. Did you do any treasure maps?
Oh.
So you see a map and it's like a little snapshot of the world, like a very small piece of it, and you got to figure out where it is. It's kind of
the
a
main world.
Yeah. So
Okay.
it's kind of creative in trying to find that. Although I got frustrated and I just looked up a guide, and there's a pretty cool guide online. You'll probably find just by Googling that you give descriptions of what the map looks like, and it will narrow it down to where it is and help you find it. That's kind of neat. It was fun to do, even just that. This is clever. I like that, but the doing the grottos themselves are just horrible, grindy experiences. And there's an issue too, because my mage was level 48-ish or something. And I'm doing these grottos where the enemies, I'm just one-shotting them. But I'm not gaining experience either, because they're under level. So there's a real problem with growth. Like, I don't understand how I'm supposed to level up doing these horrible grottos. But at the same time, you have to do the grottos to get more map. It's a very strange concept that I just don't get behind. If they did intend for you to grind, man, you're gonna have to grind for forever.
From what I understand, there's like a lot of like grotto exclusive monsters, like you can't see a Metal King slime in the main game. The only areas are the Tower of Nod and Grotto, and that's it's a pretty standard Dragon Quest monster. King Cure slime, uh, Cosmic Chimera. I don't know, like these are really cool, but these are all at a certain point like Grotto exclusives.
Wow.
Gem slime. Like, I would have liked to see them. Darkonium slime. I love a good slime. Platinum King Jewel.
Ooh, looks expensive.
Yeah, that one gives you 240,000 XP.
Jesus.
It has a total of 20 HP. So that sounds like a really difficult one. No, if you have the critical hit on the spear, then you'd be able to take that out in one hit.
Yep.
So that's probably the best way to grind in the grotto.
If you can find one that has it, mine didn't have any of those.
Yeah. That's where the treasure map comes in handy. In the right treasure map.
But that's the catch-22. Because you only get good treasure maps if you're high level.
Mm-hmm.
But you're only high level if you get good experience, which the lower level ones don't give you good experience.
Well, you get the treasure map if you connect with somebody in tag mode.
That could be one way to get it. Yeah, is somebody's found a good one and they want to give it to you. Of course,
it's almost like a game of like what do you call it? Like a telephone or something? I don't know. You know, like everyone gets a bunch of items and one person gets the fun item, and then you have to like trade it or something, you know?
Yeah.
There's some novelty to that.
Yeah. That would be cool. I could see that working out. Obviously, it didn't help me.
No.
Playing by myself.
We missed this chance.
Yeah.
Yeah. And could you imagine, you could set up cool events too, like we're going to be passing out Metal King Slime treasure maps, you know, at the GameStop, you know, on Dragon Quest Day.
Yeah, that's actually really cool. I didn't even think of that.
That's probably why Japan got so behind this game. Maybe it's like a week 1 exclusive, you know?
Yeah. That's a good idea. They probably did do that and just had like the store exclusives. That's smart.
We should find a Japanese person, interview them. Konnichiwa.
Konnichiwa.
Do you like Dragon Quest?
You ready to talk about the legacy?
Can I get up for a second?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
He's gonna stretch his
Are you
legs.
gonna sit here? Can you do like an ad for something?
Yeah, I'll do an ad.
Do an ad for Dragon Quest Day at Funko Land in 2009.
Okay.
The release of Dragon Quest 9.
Okay. Do you like Dragon Quest 9? It hasn't quite come out yet, but you're going to love it. And we have, to celebrate Dragon Quest 9, we're going to have Dragon Quest Day. Dragon Quest Day, what's that? Well, Dragon Quest Day is a day where you can come to our store and buy Dragon Quest 9 on the Nintendo DS. And it's a classic RPG that spanned decades, and now it's coming to the DS for the first time. And you're going to, well, not the first time, but first time, I guess. And you're going to play your character, and other people will help you play your game, and you'll defeat Corvus, who we won't even tell you about for a long time. And once you do that, you're going to need help. And we got your help. We got your back because we're going to give you treasure maps. And what's a treasure map? You look for it on the map, and it leads to a grotto with infinite amounts of exciting monsters you'll only find within the grottos. We'll find you the best grottos with the best metal slimes. You'll be hacking away at Nod Off before you know it. So come on down to Funko Land.
Yeah, don't nod off and miss your chance.
There you go.
Sweet. Legacy.
Let's do it. So the first one we got here is it's the best-selling entry in the series until Dragon Quest XI in 2017.
How do you feel about that?
It makes me a little sad because I'm just not as big of a fan of this game, but it also makes sense because the DS was so huge. So player base is enormous. It makes sense.
I also feel like, sometimes companies work forever on these projects. They worked for 4 years on this. That was enough time to build up some hype. And while it's not like necessarily what I love this series for, like, being like a technological innovator, I think it has a historical impact that you can't ignore, especially as like a Nintendo enthusiast. They made the next one on the Wii. Like and before that it was PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2. So like there's some interest factor here. I I don't know. I don't necessarily hate everything about it. Like, 'cause I think that like things like the character customization are cool, the micro stories. If the only thing this game accomplished was getting more people interested in Dragon Quest, I'm cool with that. But the flip side of that is that like 80% of the sales are in Japan.
That's what I was gonna say. Is if that was the goal, I don't know if they accomplished it because it was already mega popular in Japan.
These aren't the worst that we've seen. What did Dragon Warrior 3 sell? Like 200,000 copies in North America?
It's hard to compare though, right? Because that's like towards the beginning of Nintendo. I was gonna say console game, but I guess technically not if you count Atari. But like it's still early on in the gaming life cycle. Whereas now, at this point in 2020 or 2009, 2010, gaming is just such like a commonplace thing. It's hard to compare those, but I mean certainly it's bigger than three. I mean it's bigger than all of them at this point.
I mean, 600K is honestly not that great for North America, but it is matched in Europe, so I don't know. I don't know how to take that.
I
Dragon
almost
Quest 11 surpassing it though does make me happy.
yeah. And I mean I guess I'm just happy that it grew. It kept growing. That's probably the biggest takeaway is that the series just keeps growing, which is nice. They're not I don't know, maybe 10 it didn't grow as much and certainly not releasing anywhere but Japan probably hurts that number, but it's hard to say with that one, but in general the series just keeps growing, so that's really good to see.
Mhm.
Nintendo producer Hideki Kono speaking in an
Oh no.
speaking in an interview with Satoru Iwata on the development of the Nintendo 3DS, cited the tag mode as inspiration for the development of the console's Spot Pass and Street Pass feature. Now, I have never used Spot Pass or Street Pass on with the 3DS, but I imagine in bigger cities it's like a cool function.
Yeah, Street Pass is when you put your 3DS Wi-Fi signal on. So you'll see like the little yellow light, and then you flip the system shut and you put it in your backpack. And so, one, even without that, the 3DS counts your steps. So I always used to do that anyway. It'd be cool to just see how many steps I got. You get play coins for that. You can use in games. That'll be coming up in an archive soon. But also, you can connect with other people who have theirs with Wi-Fi mode on and close. So I used to go into New York City for college classes and to go to work, and I come home, and I would connect with 3, 4 people a day. They would have free games that you could use these Street Pass tags on. One of which was like a me game. I forget what it was called. Where you'd like you fight monsters with other people's me's. You'd see where they're from. You could have a map, so you could see where you've tagged with other people from, what other parts of the world, countries, states. I imagine in Japan it's probably city based. It's not just like from Japan or prefecture based. And so I always thought that communal wise it was cool. There's another one that I liked. It was like a free game where there are a bunch of portraits with puzzle pieces, and you could take somebody else's puzzle piece and put it on your puzzle if they had that puzzle. At the end, you get this big 3D moving image. I forget what they call that. GIF?
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
Constant repeats.
Well, yeah, the action repeats, and so it would give you this cool little preview. So I just thought, like, from a collector's mindset, that was pretty cool. Did Street Pass ever become the biggest hit on the system? Probably not. Clearly they ditched it for Switch, but it's interesting to see how that system influenced those games that came out on Street Pass. I could definitely see that with the treasure map system. If somebody has a treasure map you don't have, then you would want that one. So I could see that how that would influence like the puzzle game or something.
Yeah, and I could see it being a lot bigger in Japan, where it's more normalized. And I'm sure I've never been to Japan, but I'm sure it's much tighter than Arizona is as far as like people walking around. So that's probably a big deal there. Maybe New York City. I guess you said you got 3 or 4 hits a day.
Sometimes more. Sometimes like 9, 10.
Wow.
But I'd be taking the train. I'd be taking the railroad. So, it's what it is.
Next up, I wanted to put this in here. It's the term games as a service. And what that means is the game that you're shipped and that you buy at the store is not the complete game and meant to continuously provide you content, which at the time, the games weren't really doing that yet. Now it's a lot more commonplace to have a game that's like, you're going to get this game and then it's going to evolve over time. Like Fortnite literally changes every week. League of Legends, you get patched, you get new content, yada yada. World of Warcraft is kind of that, but a little different because you're paying a subscription service. But there's other games that do that. Evolve tried to do that and failed spectacularly. But this game does that in the fact that you have to get DLC quests, and some of them actually matter for the story. And they tried to keep you playing through constant DLC that they keep sending you, which I don't know when that officially stopped, but certainly they didn't give you everything at the beginning. I'm curious if that was the intention to really pioneer that, and I'm impressed that they didn't monetize it so much. So I'll say that is that luckily there was no you didn't have to pay for DLC, which is ironic because they were probably they'd already started that with one of the biggest inspirations for this game, Elder Scrolls. Oblivion famously had the horse armor that everyone made fun of, and now is completely commonplace in video games. But what do you think of that as games as a service and how it relates to Dragon Quest?
Well, if they did do that, with the intention of pioneering that genre, I think they did a shitty mess of it, and one that did not, deem any sort of longevity for the game. I think in some respects, as a work of art, it's kind of shot itself in the foot because now you have just sporadic, scattered, lazy mainline quest as your core experience, and then you have a post game that's obscure, hard to get into, and demands being with 4 people to really optimize and get the full experience for. I just don't think it was very well implemented. It was free, so it's fine. I mean, they experimented with something, and I mean, give them credit where credit's due. It's cool, not necessarily what I want to see in a Dragon Quest game, but it's also, you can't ignore it that it exists, that it was a thing that really made this game sell. The promise that they would you get more quests, challenge quests. It even says in my guidebook that this time we don't have these quests, but they'll be coming in the near future. And is that kind of shitty? Yeah, but I also don't think you get you said complete package. I think that the game, if you just play through the mainline story, is sufficient enough to say you play through the mainline story. I think it's underwhelming, but I don't think it's an incomplete Dragon Quest experience, if that makes sense. Or Dragon Quest story.
Yeah, I agree. the story is, I almost said fine. I mean, it's cohesive for what it is.
Is it?
Um, but yeah, all the other stuff is, and again, it depends on who you talk to, because there are people that obsess over it and
Mhm.
want to explore every bit of it. And I don't really get that. I just don't think it's necessary. All right. We have multiple perfect scores for this. While it's kind of a running joke that Famitsu basically rubber stamps effusive reviews for Square Enix titles, we were surprised to discover that this game is actually the first Dragon Quest to receive a perfect 40, and is one of only 10 40 scores awarded. Of course,
This is an article from like 2010, by the way, or 2009.
okay. Of course, Dragon Quest 3, 7, and 8 weren't far off with their 39 ratings. This is from Kotaku. Also notes that the Amazon Japan reviews tend to not be as positive, though they apparently center on complaints about the Sandy character, an annoying Ganguro fairy who has already inspired a Die Sandy Flash game.
That's Stella.
Oh, is that okay? I was like, who?
Yeah.
Okay, whatever. That's nonsense. But perfect 40. I don't know that I would give this a perfect score.
Certainly not today, that's for sure. The web archive link is down, so it's really hard to find information on this, but it's cited on Wikipedia. But they did give it the 40. I don't understand why. I guess it was because of the communicative features and because of its impact in Japan. Famitsu being, Famicom, so will focus on like how things do in Japan. Maybe because like Famitsu, although they review Dragon Quest games positively, the fact that this is the one that got the 40, I just don't like. I don't know how you can ignore like the narrative deficiencies in Dragon Quest 9.
Yeah, I'm surprised this one would be ranked higher than 3, 5, and 8. I just don't. I don't see it. 3, 5, and 8 to me are like and then now 11, but at the time hadn't come out yet. But those are like the pinnacles for what they do. And I just don't get it. I just don't get it.
I have the other 9 games here.
Oh, go
You know
for
what
it.
they are?
Yeah. Yeah.
These are the 9 games that before this had perfect scores. Ocarina of Time,
Okay.
Soul Calibur,
Well, okay.
Vagrant Story,
No way.
Wind Waker, Nintendogs,
No way.
Final Fantasy 12,
No way.
Smash Bros. Brawl,
No way.
Metal Gear Solid 4,
No way.
428, Fusa Sareta Shibuya Day. That's a Shibuya Scramble. It's a visual novel. They released it recently on PS4.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Really good words. I don't yeah. I mean, Ocarina of Time for sure. Soul Calibur maybe.
Soul Calibur, yeah.
All the other games I don't think so. Wasn't Chrono Cross super high?
Let's see.
Well, I guess there's a lot of super high games, so I guess
I can type Chrono here. And by the way, Dragon Quest 8 got a 39. Yeah, there's a bunch that got a 39. I don't see Chrono Cross in there though. I see other Zelda games. I see a GTA game, Mario 64, Resident Evils, Metal Gear 3, Solid 3.
Final Fantasy 12 getting a perfect score is very bizarre. I could sort of see Metal Gear Solid 4, but it's not a perfect game. But Final Fantasy 12 is.
How about Nintendogs?
That is so egregious. I couldn't even begin to describe how that's absolute nonsense, and really makes you rethink this company. But
There you go. It's up there with the titans of the industry. Zelda, Final Fantasy, Nintendogs.
yeah, you gotta be up there,
Yeah.
I love this. So we got some information here. Yu Miyake?
Yeah.
He's a Dragon Quest series executive producer. He says, we've been thinking about doing a remake of Dragon Quest IX for a while now. Dragon Quest.
This is in 2019, 10 years after Dragon Quest IX, the 10th anniversary live stream.
Ooh, excellent. Dragon Quest 1 to 8 have already been remade or ported multiple times, while 9 hasn't. Dragon Quest IX was on a portable console. It has Street Pass communications, treasure maps, and other features unique to the game. Just get rid of them, making it difficult to pinpoint which hardware we should choose to remake it on. Although there are probably many people who have only played the story once, it could be nice to have a Dragon Quest IX that simply lets you go through the story. What story? So you're looking into a remake, yes. I wonder which hardware people would want it on. Is that really a question?
Apparently, but it has a clear answer.
About 90% of the live stream audience said Switch. No fucking shit. According to Ichimura, Hino also commented on the announcement of Nintendo Switch Lite. When the talk shifted to who will develop the remake, Level 5 was jokingly mentioned. What? Hino seems to be okay with this, however. Miyake also mentioned, if we are able to do this, that may very well be where we task the remake, further reinstating that Level 5 would be the studio to handle the development. And now we're having a little conversation here. Hori says if we were to do it, we should add additional stories and content that was cut even. What the hell did you cut? Fujisawa then mentioned that cut content might be difficult because the whereabouts of the data are unknown. Ichimura, we should reevaluate Dragon Quest IX and add new content. It's pretty hefty by itself, too. I'm just going to read these. Maybe make Sandy stand out more. Also, maybe introduce her sister. That has to be a joke.
That's a joke.
Okay.
That's what she's trolling.
I'm pretty happy that so many people are interested in a remake. Hori-san, we need a company to make this happen. I think it's a good idea. The source code is probably still available too. Give us 2 months. Don't push yourself.
Oh, he's totally saying that. Hori-san, we need a company to make this happen. Level 5. You know?
Is that even fun? They're just joking with each other now. Is this going to be out by the end of the year? If I can say things without taking responsibility, we have a good engine for Switch. So if we feed Dragon Quest IX's code into that and add a feature here and there, it might be possible. That would be freaking amazing. Miyake then intervened to clarify there's nothing planned or in development yet. They're just secretly expecting a remake to be announced during this broadcast. What? That's something I mentioned forever, is that they could take that Dragon Quest 11 engine and just start remaking Dragon Quest using it. That would be fucking awesome. And they should totally do that starting with 9. That would be amazing.
I think 9 needs it the most. I think it needs a revamp on like everything. You need more exposition on Corvus, just the, and the overarching plot, kind of like the ruin of the almighty goddess or god, like what happened there. A lot more context would be beneficial. There are things I would want to keep similar or the same. Like I do like the leveling system enough, and I like the character customizations. I think streamlining them will make it better, streamlining the stories. And also just being able to access a lot of these, and just throw all of the DLC into the game, so we don't even have to worry about this issue, going forward.
Yep. I have a thought on how to make the classes system better. It's a lot of just me having ideas, but I think you could take that hex system. I adore the leveling up system in Dragon Quest XI, like the whole hex grid, and you can just pick what you want off of it. You take that and put like specific items on that grid that are like permanent, so they transfer to other classes. That would be so freaking cool. Obviously, we're remaking 9, so just use the one that already exists or make that better or something. I don't know, for a future idea, that would be so awesome. But yeah, I go for it. Remake 9 with this, and then go remake 1, and then go remake 2. Just remake all those. Like, why not? In a better engine, that would
Yeah.
be so cool. I hope they're serious about that.
Yeah, I'm all for I think it would really benefit this game. I felt like Dragon Quest IX lacked some personality that a lot of the other ones had. Not necessarily because of like the lack of like party chat and things like that, but just because the storylines were so sporadic. The music is borrowed, a lot of it. Only a couple tracks stand out to me as uniquely Dragon Quest IX, like the combat theme and I think like the train song. But I just a little bit more focus on the script overall and a little more impact. I think a lot of these aren't bad. A lot of these like little short anecdotes about like a queen and a kingdom or a teacher and all that, but like they actually had some cool cutscenes in the game. I think like if you revamp those, you make them like more spectacular in the Dragon Quest 11 engine, create new ones from the ground up. That would be superb. I'm all for Dragon Quest 9 being remade.
Absolutely, please do it.
Oh, and also skill points. Just make them like so. Just do accessibility. Like if you want to reset your skill points, just make it accessible to the player. I don't think you should be punished for picking the wrong class or something.
100%. Yep. And then finally, we're going to try to compare this to the rest of the series. Where does it fit in with the other Dragon Quests?
I'll go first. So this is now the 7th Dragon Quest game that I've finished. Seen the credits for. Didn't play the post game, but I didn't care to. So I've finished 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, and 9, and then a couple spin-offs. I think that I mean, from a historical perspective, I like Dragon Quest II, but it is really one of the worst in the series. I still hate Dragon Quest VI, but I haven't finished it, so it's not even really in my equation. Um, I don't think it's as good as 3. I think 3 is probably better. I joke about 3 being like kind of like lazy stories, but I do think it's more cohesive than this game. I feel like everything is so random in Dragon Quest IX, which is kind of a shame. I am looking at this from a holistic narrative point of view. And even from a gameplay perspective, like I do like the leveling up systems and just the simplicity of the character classes in 3. Going to the Temple of Dharma and then changing the, classes is pretty simple and straightforward. I do like elements like seeing monsters on screen, but I think with the remakes of 7 and 8 and then just 11 being out, like we've seen this done better since then. And then I actually don't find the random encounters super annoying in most of the first 6 games, with the exception of 2 in that damn cave, the Cave of Verone. So I put it above 2, but I think it's probably right now on par with 6 for me as being in the bottom tiers.
Okay. Let's see. I've done all of them now except for 10, which may never happen. Square Enix, that's your fault. But it's unfortunate because I put 1 towards the bottom, 1 and 2. Historically, they're amazing, but as far as games that you'd want to play, I don't know. They're just obviously old.
It's true. Yeah.
Old. 6, I rate pretty highly. I mean, my number 1 is probably 8, and then 11, and then the other ones, I don't know, they fit in somewhere below that. This would be just a this. This would be somewhere around 3, but below 3 because I agree with you. 3, while it's older and has more archaic pieces of it, I do think that the world feels more fleshed out somehow, despite being despite being less in almost every way. It still feels more like a world than Nines does. Like they don't even these countries don't even like talk to each other or seem to have any like relation to each other or even know that like amazing things are happening, and they don't like all contribute to the idea that there's a force that's causing havoc. Whereas at least in 3, everyone's like, something's not right. Like, I don't know what it is, but there's weird stuff going on. You just felt like a thing growing there. I'd be curious to see once the remake comes out of 3 if that really puts it over. But as it stands, yeah, I've got to put it lower than 3. So probably my third least favorite. And also, but I mean, it's definitely worth noting that we're not playing it the way it was intended to be played, or at least in the context of the culture. So it's kind of a weird anomaly of a Dragon Quest game because it's like it doesn't have to be played a certain way, but it certainly encourages you to. And without doing that, it's kind of odd. It'd be like if you're trying to rate like trying to review World of Warcraft, but you never played it with anybody and you just like played it by yourself and you're like, here's my thoughts of it. It's like, yeah, you're kind of missing the point of it, which is unfortunate, but it's also of their own design. I mean, that's the way they built it, and the way it ages happens because of that. So it's a hard one to rate, but yeah, as it stands, is how I can play it. It's got to be one of the bottom tier Dragon Quests.
And I mean, some of that is systemic. I mean, we just live in a country where Nintendo, I don't think, has ever been a cultural phenomenon, with the exception of possibly the Switch. 64 was cool, but I feel like it's more of like an obscure thing. It's like just fun multiplayer stuff. The DS, as fun as it was, and like people were playing, old people playing Brain Age or whatever. I don't know kids who are like picking up DSs, let alone three. To go, and then you want to throw Dragon Quest into that equation. Well, I mean, I think
Yeah,
just like this was a Japanese cultural phenomenon, and it would have been a hell of a time to play with them.
yeah.
Probably, you know.
It probably, dude. I can see this being amazing if you're in Japan and everyone's into Dragon Quest. Like if this were Elden Ring, like here, that would be. I could totally see it. I was in the hype. Everyone was doing it, vibing it, playing together. Like, Joan, you're in my game, yada yada. That over there was probably how this was, and it was phenomenal. So I could see in that way how they could rate it a perfect score. But it would be very much like a zeitgeist kind of experience. Whereas us reviewing it in 2022 in America by ourselves is odd. It's just odd, really. It's strange.
And I'm willing to try local Wi-Fi, um, but I don't think the hype is there.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
change it, update it, remake it. I'd love to give it a shot, but I do think that this game is a bit antiquated and by its own design.
yeah. I agree.
And our culture, god damn it. Come on, America, play more Dragon Quest.
If there's one mission statement for RPG Archive, get us-
God damn it, America. Play some more Dragon Quest.
well, that's the end of the archive. Teddy, you got any like final thoughts about Dragon Quest 11? Or sorry, 9?
Love it. Wait, I'm not there yet.
We'll hit that.
The demo, yeah. Dragon Quest Nine is obscure. It is antiquated, but it's worth playing, especially as a fan of the series. I think there are a lot of cool ideas, and I think there are a lot of dumb ideas, but they're still interesting ideas, and they're worth exploring.
Yeah, it's like the hidden corner of Dragon Quest. It was cool to flesh it out. It's definitely a unique one to speak to, because I bet you a lot of people when we get into these circles have not played it. So it's unique.
Other games in the series have done things better. Others have done things worse, but they're still lovable, and it's our Dragon Quest that we know and value.
All right. Well, thank you, Teddy, for joining me on this journey. Full disclosure, you did a lot of the prep work for this, so I do appreciate that. You did a phenomenal job, knocked it out of the park. So thank you for that. Make sure you check out Teddy's channel, Majority, where he gives all the expertise. He's been doing a lot of shooters, and but he hits up Q&A. He does everything, so make sure you check it out. And he may, at a certain point, take over my channel. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm not sure what month.
Watch out.
He's coming for my job. So, good luck. But until then, thank you so much for joining me. And we can now consider Dragon Quest 11. God, I keep saying that because the letters are just switched. We can consider Dragon Quest 9 archived.
All right. That's another one down. Throw it in the archive.
There we go.